I want to start off by showing you this page that I did in my sketchbook recently, and I just taped off some sections before I started and then worked on the whole page. Took the tape off and revealed nice, pretty little boxes here with a lot of interest in each square. It's really fun to work kind of in a series like this. So when I was thinking about the next freebie that I want to offer, I thought, why not scan this in for you guys, and then you guys can print it out and play with it on your own. So here I have the printed out versions, and I want to also share something that I discovered recently. So normally my downloads look like this when I print them out. I do adjust them on the computer to make sure for our home printers they're going to do as best as possible. This is a nice 32-pound premium paper. It's from HP. I'll link that down below. And this is what I normally use, and I'm usually pretty happy with the results. Oftentimes I will take it and zhuzh it up a little bit and make it pop even further. I did try to print it out on matte photo paper, and it's a lot more vibrant. And in fact, I don't think I'm going to do much to this today as far as pumping up the volume and the dynamics of the colors and things like that. But what I will do, I think, is make a few little maybe assemblages or little cards. I'm not exactly sure where we're going to take this today. I pulled out just a few things. I tried to limit myself, but knowing me, I always pull out way more than I need. So I'm happy with the colors. I don't have paints really pulled out. I may bring in some white or things like that to create even more negative space. I am going to cut these apart, so I'm not going to work on them as a whole 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper here. So just a few paper scraps and a little bit of fabric. I'm just thinking a little bit of embellishment on these would be really cool. So let's see where that goes, see where it takes us. And I'm just going to cut right along. You could also cut where you're going to leave some of that white space in between. And I can put some of these other ones aside, or if I wanted to work on more than one at once, I could. And in fact, let me choose another one. Sometimes having more than one in front of you actually helps you to not overthink and take too long deliberating over your decisions. As I mentioned, I don't feel a real deep need to have to change these a lot, but just a little bit of something to accent and enhance might be really nice, and to add a little bit more dimension back into it, because when you print something out, it's completely flat. I'm even considering backing these together and making a little like pull out for a pocket or a tag or something like that. So we'll see where that goes. I'm going to start just with a couple pieces of fabric, start pulling things out. When you start pulling things out and cutting it down, it does make it easier to get a better idea of what kind of look you're after. This is just some chiffon that I dyed. And so it's a really nice color in there. And I am thinking maybe to tone things down a little bit, I'll bring in some maybe creams. I really love the loose weave of this fabric, and this has some coffee on it. Let's see. I also always love a black and white. Okay, this has some coffee on it as well. It's okay when you start if you don't have a concrete idea of what you're looking for. Sometimes it's through that exploration that we discover new things and new techniques that we might want to try down the road. And I notice when things are too planned out, it makes me feel like I don't have the freedom to explore and try different things, because then I feel like I have to stick more with what was planned from the beginning. I think I'm not even going to like put different layers down and then decide. I think I'm just going to go for it and glue. And the best part is I can just reprint this all out if I really don't like what I've done. And so that kind of loosens things up as well and gives you a little bit more freedom just to let go and create. I decided I am just going to cut all of these down to size. That way I can kind of move about more freely and just see if I like something on one more than another. I don't necessarily need to do the same exact thing on all of them. I'm definitely considering backing one with another one and just having it a double-sided little piece. So my plan is not to add a ton of like paint and stuff, but I do think it would be fun to kind of incorporate this in to it a little bit more. So maybe I'll add some of this in and kind of blend it over top of the fabric, and I'm just using my finger here. Okay, so I'm happy with that. I know on some of these, I do want the corners rounded. I'm not sure which ones yet, but instead of overthinking it, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it on this one and see what it looks like. Yeah, that's kind of fun. Just a little bit different of a look. And actually, this might be kind of fun if I go around the edge a bit and just doing that with my black China pencil. And it's just going to give it a little bit of a border. Yeah. I don't really think I need to go under that because I did glue it, but it is a see-through fabric, so maybe it would show just a tiny bit. Nope, not so much, but that's okay. All right, so I really like that so far. I think I'll do this. I'm trying to decide hand stitching or machine stitching, but I think it might be fun to have a little bit of a pop with some hand stitching, and I could go in this color range. I could go a little brighter. I think I like this one the best. And I think I'll do a couple layers of it or a couple strands just to give it a little bit more of a messy look. I'm actually going to quadruple it, which is quite excessive, but I like the messiness that it adds. So I'm just going to fold my thread here in half at a pretty long length because it's actually going to get halved again. So then I'm just pulling it through, and I definitely, oh, I'm used to sewing more things on. So I'm going to actually shorten this, just using this for a little bit of paper. So it does not need to be quite so excessive. Let me just, you know what? I'm just going to cut it here and then even it all out. Make sure my ends are together. Okay, we're still like extremely long here, but I am gonna half this again. Okay, so then I'm gonna make another really fun thing about doing the quadruples. We can get a really fun knot out of this, so it doesn't end up being as long as what it feels like. So I'm actually just gonna do a little bit of a quilter's knot, which you put the thread on top here, and then I'm gonna hold it between my index and thumb, and I'm gonna twist a couple times around. Then I'm gonna switch hands and go to the left, and I'm gonna pull that needle and that thread all the way down to the bottom. Creates a nice knot there. So now I'm going to put this on here, and I think just kind of go random with my stitches. And I want that knot to show. So I'm actually going to start on the front, and then I get really fun texture here. Just go in and out a couple times. This is for decoration, but it's also attaching the piece of fabric to the page, so I didn't use any glue for that part. And I don't want that piece to actually lay totally flat, so I'm gonna kind of manipulate it a little bit and then make it stitch it down in a little bit more texturized way. And I'm gonna go off of that piece as well, just so it doesn't look so contained on there. And sometimes I'll poke my hole from the front to the back just so that I know exactly where it's going. When you're on the back and you're trying to just kind of guess where it needs to come up, you're going to end up poking a few times. And the difference between sewing on paper and on fabric is your holes are actually going to stay when you go on paper versus on fabric. They kind of have a little bit of a way of self-healing, and you can kind of poke more holes and get by with that. All right, so nothing crazy. I am going to go up here as well. And it's kind of fun just to think of these stitches that I'm adding on as little art marks. Your tool is just a needle and thread versus a pen or a pencil. Okay. And I think I'm happy with that. I'm gonna tie that off just on the back. I already have that one texturized knot on the front, and so I don't need more on such a small card like this. And I'm just tying that into another piece on the back and securing it. I often go overboard on my knots, so I'm just gonna go around one more time and cut that off. Now this could be done here. I'm trying to decide if I want to add any stitching. You know, I might go around the outside here. So I'm just going to tie that again. Same thing, quilter's knot. This time I'm not leaving a long tail. And I will start from the back, but I'm actually going to poke my hole from the front just so I know where everything is going. And I'll actually just do that on all of these here just to make it easier for myself. And I don't need to go crazy, but a few might be fun. All right, and then I'll just tie that off on the back. I could leave that thread longer, but I'm not going to. I just went under some of those threads on the back, and again, just to create that knot, and I'll do it once more just for security. And I think the stitches on the back are kind of a fun look, but at this point you could also go and back this in something. You could back it in another one of these or a blank sheet of paper, or you could go like more of a translucent option. Like this actually might be kind of fun. Then you can see some of the stitches through it, but it has a little bit of an overlay. In fact, let's just go ahead and do that. My glue stick is already out, so I'm going to use that. Otherwise, you can go with like a matte medium. Works really well with these really thin papers. So this is actually an old sewing pattern. I'm just going to go right over those stitches and stuff. I'm not too worried about it looking super nice. So I like these little triangles, so I want to make sure to include them and the black line. So that's where it fell. I'm just going to leave it there. And for this, I'm just going to smooth it out with my finger. And I'll just cut with some scissors. See how that goes. Get some of that excess out of the way. It's really thin, so actually it kind of works almost better just to tear it a little bit, and using that scissors as a sharp point. And I want to make sure I'm not stitching through these stitches here, or cutting through them, excuse me. So I'll probably just go in and fine tune that with my finger. In fact, this is so thin, I can almost just use that as a sharp edge and see how that works. I actually don't mind it not being perfect. Sure, that works for me. Okay. And let's just fine tune that. Okay, so the first one is done. I like how that turned out. Really simple, just added a few ingredients, and that's kind of a fun thing then to put in a journal or on a card. It can be a tag, it can be a whole assortment of different things. So let's see if we can have another one come together for us. And maybe on this one, I'll plan for it to be a front and a back. So you can go about that a couple different ways. I could glue them together just to start off here, or I could work on the front and back separately and then put everything together. Why I would choose one way over another is if I'm not stitching through this, or if I'm not planning on adding any stitches, I would put them together right now and then work on them. But if you are stitching through it, you may not want to see those stitches on this side. So instead, I'll work on them both separately. I can stitch on both of them and then put them together, and then you don't see the stitches going all the way through those layers. So I may have to give that a little bit of a trim to make that fit right, but that's okay. I could also do that black China marker again around the outside. So these two were already kind of together, so let's do these two and see how that goes. So maybe I'll do something that has a little bit more texture on it. And this is just some hand-dyed cheesecloth. Just always good for adding in some of that texture. I'm manipulating it a little bit, but also just seeing where it kind of wants to fall in this little clump together. So maybe something like that. And then actually, I think these around the outside need a little bit of pumping up. So I'm going to actually take a acrylic marker and just go over that. And in fact, this color may bring all of it together a little bit more. Yeah, I like that. So it still has that previous color shining through, but it was a little bit more lime, and this red a little bit more in those golden tones. So just by adding a little bit of that, I think it helps. And maybe I'll just do a few little marks, and it's kind of tone on tone over here, but it just ties that whole thing together a tiny bit more. Okay. Yeah, I'm happy with that as I go to add more. All right. Okay, so now with that on there, I think let's do a little piece of something. And I'm actually thinking maybe an embellished little safety pin would be really fun on this one. Okay, so I just saw a piece I liked to do something like that, but that's quite dark. So these are just the thoughts going through my head as I create. You don't always know what the game plan is going to be when you start out. Okay, so I have some safety pins here. Let's see what size I want. Could go a little bit bigger. I'm thinking the smaller might be better, but I think the real mini is too small. Yep, so let's go with that one. Okay, and let's see about embellishing that just a little bit. And sometimes I do that before I put it on, but you know what? I'm just gonna go for it and put it on and then do the embellishment. And I'm decently happy with the placement of that. Can always do a tiny bit more adjusting after. I'm just going directly through the paper here. And if I really wanted to, I could go through both sides of the paper, but that's not super interesting. And so I don't have a need to have that show. That's really straight on there, which is nice, but I don't know that I want it that straight. So let me just go once more. All right. There, that's a little bit more whimsical or something, so more organic, even though I made it that way. Okay, so I'm gonna maybe tie a few things on here. I think black and white would be really nice. And in fact, I'm gonna go this, and I'm gonna go even thinner so that it's easier to tie. And just go like this and go in. I'm just gonna tie it onto that safety pin. Just doing a little knot. I could leave it just like that if I wanted. I think I want it a little bit more jazzed up. And maybe I'll just do the front side of this more jazzed up, and then the back I'll leave more plain. I think I want the rounded corners again. I really kind of liked that. So I'm just gonna do that now while I'm thinking of it. Of course, it might be smarter to wait until you put your front and back together and then do it all at one time, but I wanted to see what it looked like. I got impatient. So, okay, put that on there. Let's see if we can pull something else that might be interesting. I'm actually thinking about putting some beads on this as well, but I think it needs just a little bit more. And maybe, ooh, actually, I have some sari ribbon. I think that is a cream with a black polka dot on it. Do I have any in here? Did I pull any? If not, I know I have some. Let's see if it's in. This little container is just full of teeny tiny little scraps that are perfect for stuff like this. I don't know if it needs more green, especially if I put green beads on it. So even though I have lots of little green pieces in here, that would be really pretty. Let's see. Okay, so that's the piece I'm thinking about. It would be kind of nice on there, but that's not long enough. It has to at least be long enough to tie on there. All right, let's look somewhere else. And watch, I end up finding it. I'm not even going to use it. We'll see. Sometimes that's just how it goes. But if you have something stuck in your head, you almost have to find it to get it out of your head, unless you want to adapt. Okay, so I just cut a little piece off here, and this is much too large. So let's go ahead and make that a lot thinner, and it's too long as well. Okay. You know what? I'm now wondering if I don't like that behind it, if that's what's throwing me off. I wonder if a little, yeah, like a striped piece I think would have looked better behind there. So I'm actually just going to adjust this. I think I could make that work, but something about that is not popping. Okay, so I'm going to take that off. And actually, in this little box, I think I saw black and white stripe. That's not quite big enough. Some really tiny pieces. I had to put them in a container all together like this, otherwise you lose track of them when they're all with all the bigger pieces. Okay, well, not seeing anything, so let's just rip it again. Man, I thought I was going to be really good and use up some of my small pieces there. Okay, I'm just going to rip this then. Let's go that wide. And yeah, I think that's a little bit more the vibe I wanted. Okay, so I'm going to put that down, maybe like that, and come in with this piece. And if I really wanted to, I could line those holes back up, but I'm not going to, especially if I end up backing this in something. I don't really care that there's extra holes on the back. Okay, well now that black doesn't stand out super much, but let's see here. Let's just keep going, trucking ahead and seeing if we can find something. Okay, I am going to cut this down, but sometimes if it's a little longer while you tie it, it does make it easier. Some just come together a little bit more smooth than others. And we are working on quite a busy background, so that definitely does play a part in it as well. But I don't think I mind that. So let's see. It's a lot happening, but let's proceed and see how that goes. I think I want some beads hanging down off it, and these have such a fun finish on them. These are more transparent. It's a good thing I love chartreuse because we're really getting chartreuse heavy here. Okay. So let's just take, I don't think I need a beading needle, even though these are small beads. I think I just need something thin enough to go through them, which this is actually a beading needle, so I guess if I have it out. And I'm just going to use regular thread for this. So I think I want black thread. Not that it really matters, but it will show just a tiny bit because I'll leave the knot really nice and loose. So I'm actually just going to pull it. I have some on my machine behind me. Let me just pull some off. Okay, and I'm gonna actually double it up on here. Don't think I need the quadruple like I did on the earlier one. Okay. Man, I just have a tendency to cut really long threads though, my goodness. I think I need way more than what I do. Okay. Do a quilter's knot again. Okay, so what I'm gonna do for this one is I wanna make a little loop with the beads. So I have the beads here, and it would be good if I had something to put these in. All right, I found a lid that from a jar that I use for paint and stuff sometimes. Let me just to contain them a little bit. And I need to put my cap on because whenever I don't, I spill all of them everywhere. So, and I'm just gonna string some of these on here, nothing special. I did this like a yard too long, but that's okay. And you know what? Maybe black beads would show up more, but I'm just going to continue on with these. I have them out. And really, maybe I should have added more white gesso to the background of this one to calm things down a little bit, but I really liked how busy it was. And so I just decided to stick with that instead of covering a bunch of stuff up to calm it down. Okay, so I have some beads on here and, oh, went over the knot. Goodness. Okay. And I don't know, maybe it's a little over an inch worth. I have a ruler right here, just in case you guys are curious. Inch and a half, about. Not that you need that same amount, but if you're curious, that's how long I did. And so now I am going to go through the last 2 or 3 that I started with. So I have this line here, and my needle's coming out this side. I'm going to go through, let's say 2 from the beginning. And what that's going to do with my super long thread is give us a little loop, which is really fun. Okay, so now we have this little loop made. So the more beads you put on there, the bigger that loop will be. So it's okay to have your thread a little bit extra long because I will leave some dangles, but this is just obnoxious, but I was too lazy to redo it or cut it shorter. So now I need to decide where I'm going to put these on. So I originally thought right in here, but maybe it doesn't show up as much. So maybe I want to go on this side and have it kind of play off the black. Maybe I want it in the middle. I don't think in the middle. Let's just go with our original thinking. Okay, now I'm going to just use my needle to help me here. I mean, if your needle came undone, you don't need to re-thread it at this point. But I'm going to go under that little bar of the safety pin. And essentially, I'm just going to tie this and secure it on now. So get those ribbons and stuff out of the way. Had gotten it caught in the head of the safety pin. Okay, I need to cut this down. This is just obnoxious. This is still obnoxiously long, but okay. Okay, now I'm just going to make sure that the end of that butts up to the safety pin, and I'm just going to do regular knots on here, nothing fancy. Went through a couple times, pulled it. I'm going to do mine tight against that bar, but you could leave it hanging down more if you wanted to. And I'm going to go ahead and knot several times. I always err on the side of more secure rather than less secure. Okay, and then with my last one, I think I will make almost like a bow or something to have these kind of hang down a bit. It's not necessary, but it just adds a tiny bit more dimension, just like we did on the first one of the other one where we made that really loopy knot. Just something a little bit different. Okay. So those are kind of wonky on there. Perfect. Adjust things how you want it to lay. And actually, I think the black thread was the right choice just because it helps those beads stand out a tiny bit more. We have just so much green happening. If it was any other color, I may say that it's too much, but my heart resides with chartreuse. So, you know what? I'm going to stop fussing. I'm just going to let it be. These are way too long. Okay, let that be. I can always trim them more later. The loops are really big. It's kind of fun. So I am going to just go ahead and back this in something because I think that would be just a fun thing. This could go automatically into a pocket in your journal, but I also think it'd be a really fun to put on top of a card for somebody. I don't know, really easy and relatively quick to come together, even with my indecisiveness and changing things up. But I think that just goes to prove you never really know exactly what you want until you actually give it a try and just see how it goes. And we learn from those decisions, and it helps us to become okay taking a few more risks as we go. So I don't need to do a bunch to this, but let's maybe just a tiny bit jazzed up. Can I help myself of not doing anything? I don't know that I want to leave it completely plain. You know what? That's super simple, but I kind of like the look of that. Just a little bit added overlay. And you can collage with fabric too. I don't know, we have the dots over here. It's really not needed. Sometimes I really want to juice up the digital downloads, but these ones have quite a bit going on and they're just so good on their own that I really don't know how much extra is needed. And you know what? I'm going to stop fussing. I'm just going to put this on. And let's see, I'll round the corners before I do that. And I'm not going to do anything too fancy. I'm just going to use the glue stick that I have right here. Make sure it's a nice amount on there and go all the way out to the edges. Okay. Line things up as best as possible. Press together. I do see a tiny bit of white coming from the back, so I think the back was just slightly bigger. Yeah, why not? I'm going to go around the outside like I did on the other one. And I have the same thing on this side. So instead of like trying to trim my paper down, I'm just going to do this. It's fine. Okay, well, I'm quite happy with how that turned out. And I think it's really fun to just back it in another one. So I hope that you guys enjoyed both of those. You could go on to decorate all of them, just do one or a couple, but I'll probably just put these in my stash and have them ready to go down the road. That way, if I'm working in a journal or creating a new journal, I can just pull them out and use them and they're ready to go. That's my favorite thing about having things pre-made ahead of time is you don't have to stop in that moment and actually make them. Really love the amount of texture on that, and I like just the simplicity on the background. I mean, there's a lot going on, but I added just a tiny bit, not a lot. So proud of myself for showing some restraint, and I like how things turned out. So I hope you do too. And if you make any, make sure to tag me over on Instagram at @bbhenry_art. I would love to see what you're making. Make sure to download that free printable. That link is down below. And of course, I'll be linking supplies that I use down there as well. Okay, everybody, have a good one. I'll see you next time.